I called my twin brother in tears after 35 years of silence. "Brother, please come save me." My brother agreed. I was begging because I had been locked like an animal in my own garage for 3 years. My son-in-law had stripped me of everything: my home, my freedom, my dignity. Soon I would give this devil a lesson to expose his evil nature. Hey everyone, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Before we dive deeper, drop a comment. Where are you tuning in from today? Quick note: this is a fictional story created for entertainment. The characters and events aren't real, but the message about family betrayal and courage, that matters. Now let's continue. They say you can get used to anything. I used to believe that. But sitting here in the dark, on the 1095th night of this nightmare, I know better. Some hells don't break you all at once. They do it slowly, piece by piece, until you forget what it felt like to be whole. The garage smells like motor oil and rust. It's a sharp, bitter smell that never leaves. I used to love it. 30 years ago, I'd spend weekends out here working on my old Chevy hands, black with grease, whistling along to classic rock on the radio. Now the smell makes me sick. The concrete floor is cold beneath the thin camping mattress I sleep on. In the corner, there's a plastic bucket. I won't say what it's for. You can guess. The windows are boarded up. The door has an electronic lock. I hear it beep when someone opens it from outside. But from the inside, nothing. I'm a prisoner in my own house. That thought still stings. This garage is part of a $7 million estate I designed myself. Every corner, every window in that house was drawn by my hand. I was an architect. Elizabeth and I lived here for 20 years. We raised our daughter here. We loved here. Now I rot here. Just 30 feet away is the living room with the fireplace I built from Riverstone. The kitchen where Elizabeth used to bake cinnamon rolls every Sunday. The master bedroom upstairs with bay windows overlooking the garden. All of it so close. And I can't reach it. I lean back against the wall and feel the ache in my ribs. Victoria hit me with a steel rod yesterday because I didn't sweep fast enough. Brandon kicked me 2 days ago because he was drunk. Kyle doesn't hit me much anymore. He doesn't need to. He has his mother and brother to do it. My stomach growls. They gave me half a sandwich this morning. That was 14 hours ago. I should be used to the hunger, but I'm not. I pull my knees to my chest. I'm 68 years old, but I feel 70. My back aches. My knees creak. My hands shake. 3 years ago, I could still jog. Now I can barely stand. 3 years. 1,095 days. I used to count them by scratching lines into the wall with a bent nail. 1 line for each day, but around day 400, I stopped. It didn't matter anymore. But tonight, something changed. 2 weeks ago, Tanisha Williams, the woman who cleaned the house, got fired. Kyle said she was stealing. She wasn't. She was kind. She used to sneak me an extra piece of bread when no one was looking. The day before she left, she found me alone. She looked scared. She didn't say much. She just slipped something into my hand and whispered, "Call someone. Anyone. Please." It was an old flip phone. The battery was nearly dead, but it still had charge. I hid it inside a toolbox under old rags. I didn't dare turn it on. Kyle checks randomly. If he found it, I'd be dead. But tonight, Kyle came home drunk. I heard him yelling upstairs, slamming doors. Then silence. He passed out. This is my only chance. I pull the phone out with trembling hands. My heart pounds so hard I can hear it. The screen is cracked, but when I press power, it glows faint green. 1 bar of battery. Maybe 10 minutes left. Who do I call? The police, or Kyle has connections. A neighbor. They all think I have Alzheimer's. Kyle told them that 2 years ago. No, there's only one person. My hands shake as I dial the number. It's been 35 years, but I still remember every digit. Isn't that strange? I can barely remember yesterday, but I remember this. The phone rings once, twice, 3 times. Please pick up. Hello. The voice is deep, rough, like gravel. It's older than I remember, but I'd know it anywhere. My throat tightens. I can't speak. Tears blur my vision. Hello, the voice says again, cautious now. Who is this? I force the words out, broken and shaking. Martin. It's me. It's Marcus. Silence. 5 long seconds of nothing but static. I wonder if he hung up. It's been 35 years. 35 years since we spoke. 35 years since the fight, the stupid fight about Mom that tore us apart. Then his voice comes back different now. Colder. Sharper. The voice of someone who spent 20 years in the FBI. Marcus. He says slowly, like he's testing the word. Where are you? I can barely speak. My chest heaves. I'm crying now. I need help, Martin. I need you. Where are you? He repeats, urgent. Portland. My house. I'm trapped. They locked me in the garage. Kyle and his family, they've been... My voice cracks. I can't finish. Another pause. Then Martin's voice cuts through, cold and certain. Give me the address. I'll be there. I tell him. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't ask why I didn't call sooner. He doesn't ask about the 35 years of silence. He just says, hold on. I'm coming. The line goes dead. I sit there in the dark, clutching the phone, my heart hammering. For the first time in 1,095 days, I feel something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. The phone screen goes dark in my hand. The battery's dead. I sit there in the silence, my back against the cold wall, my heart still racing. Martin's voice echoes in my head. Hold on. I'm coming. I close my eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. It's been so long since anyone said they were coming for me. The darkness of the garage presses in around me, but for the first time in years, it doesn't feel suffocating. My mind drifts back through the years, past the pain, past the hunger, past the 3 years of hell, to a time when everything was different. A time when I was whole. 8 years ago, I was 60 years old, freshly retired, and sitting on the back porch of this house with a cup of coffee in my hand. The sun was warm on my face. Elizabeth was beside me reading a paperback novel with her reading glasses perched on her nose. She always wore those glasses crooked. I used to tease her about it. God, I miss her. Elizabeth Donovan. My wife of 30 years. The kindest woman I ever knew. She was a second-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary. Every morning she'd wake up at 6, make herself a cup of tea, and pack lunches for her students who couldn't afford them. She never told anyone. She just did it. That was Elizabeth's quiet kindness, no need for applause. We met at a community fundraiser back in 1978. She was organizing a bake sale. I was the architect who designed the new library wing. She asked me to help carry tables. I said yes. 3 months later, I proposed. 30 years. 3 decades of laughter arguments, making up Sunday morning pancakes. Road trips to the coast, and slow dances in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. We had 1 daughter. Sophia. She was our miracle. Elizabeth had 3 miscarriages before Sophia came along. When the doctor finally said, "It's a girl and she's healthy," Elizabeth cried for an hour straight. I cried too, though I'd never admit it. Sophia grew up to be beautiful, not just in looks, but in spirit. She had her mother's kindness and my stubbornness. She became an interior designer. She was good at it too. Creative, talented. 8 years ago, she was 28 and engaged to a man named Kyle Pierce. Kyle was a real estate broker. Young, ambitious, well-dressed. He drove a BMW and always had a firm handshake. He called me sir and brought flowers to Elizabeth every time he visited. He seemed perfect. Elizabeth liked him. He's polite, she said. He treats Sophia well. I had my doubts. There was something about his smile too smooth, too practiced. But Sophia loved him, and I loved Sophia. So I kept my mouth shut. The wedding was small, 50 people in a garden by the lake. Sophia wore a white dress with lace sleeves. Elizabeth cried happy tears. Kyle's mother, Victoria, sat in the front row with a tight smile that never reached her eyes. His younger brother, Brandon, showed up drunk. I should have seen the red flags, but I didn't. Back then, I had other things on my mind. Money, for one. I'd spent 40 years as an architect. I designed schools, libraries, office buildings. I was good at my job. By the time I retired at 60, I had $7 million in the bank. Not bad for a kid who grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Seattle. I also owned a piece of land, a small, unremarkable lot on the east side of Portland. Most people wouldn't look twice at it, but I knew better. That lot was the key to a massive commercial development project called Keystone. If the project went through, my lot would be worth $5 million. Developers had been circling for years offering me lowball prices. I always said no. I didn't need the money. I had enough. That land was my safety net, my legacy for Sophia. I told Elizabeth, when we're gone, Sophia will be set for life. Elizabeth smiled. You always think too far ahead, Marcus. Someone has to, I said. She kissed my cheek. I know, that's why I love you. But then there was Martin Donovan, my twin brother. We were born 11 minutes apart, identical twins. Same face, same height, same voice. People couldn't tell us apart until we opened our mouths. I was the planner. Martin was the doer. I designed buildings. He joined the FBI. We were inseparable until we weren't. 35 years ago, our mother got sick. Dementia. She couldn't remember our names. She couldn't feed herself. The doctors said she needed round-the-clock care. I said, we should put her in a nursing home, a good one. She'll get professional care. Martin said, absolutely not. She raised us. We take care of her at home. We argued. I said he was being unrealistic. He said I was being cold. It escalated. Words were said that couldn't be taken back. Mom died 6 months later. Martin blamed me. I blamed him. We stopped speaking. 35 years of silence. Elizabeth begged me to reach out. He's your brother Marcus. Life's too short. I always said, maybe next year. But next year never came. And then 6 years ago, everything fell apart. Elizabeth started coughing. At first we thought it was allergies. Then she started losing weight. Then she couldn't walk up the stairs without gasping for air. The doctor's words were clinical and cold. Stage 4 lung cancer. It spread to her lymph nodes. We can try chemotherapy, but... That word hung in the air like a guillotine. Elizabeth refused chemo. I don't want to spend my last month sick and miserable, she said. I want to be home, with you. She lasted 4 months. I watched her fade. Every day a little less Elizabeth, a little more pain. By the end, she weighed 90 pounds. Her voice was a whisper, but she never stopped smiling. The day she died, Sophia was there. We held Elizabeth's hands. She looked at me and said, "Take care of each other." Then she closed her eyes. Sophia sobbed. I held her. We cried together. 2 weeks after the funeral, the house felt like a tomb. I wandered through empty rooms, expecting to see Elizabeth around every corner. Reading in her chair by the window, humming in the kitchen, folding laundry in the bedroom. But she was gone. The silence was unbearable. I couldn't sleep in our bed. Her pillow still smelled like her lavender shampoo. I'd lie there at night, staring at the ceiling, and the grief would crush me like a weight on my chest. That's when Sophia called. "Dad," she said gently, I can't stand the thought of you alone in that big house. Let me come stay with you, just for a little while, until you're back on your feet." I should have said no. I should have told her I'd be fine, that I needed time, that she had her own life with Kyle. But I didn't. "Okay," I said. My voice cracked. "Just for a little while." She moved in the next day. The first week was a relief. Sophia cooked my favorite meals: pot roast, mashed potatoes, apple pie. She cleaned the house, watered the garden, and sat with me in the evenings. We'd watch old movies together, the ones Elizabeth loved. Sometimes Sophia would hold my hand. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. For the first time since Elizabeth died, I didn't feel completely alone. "Thank you," I told her one night. "I don't know what I'd do without you." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're my dad. I'm not going anywhere." Week 3, everything changed. Kyle showed up on Friday afternoon. He said he was staying the weekend. Just to help out," he said with that smooth smile of his. But Monday came and he didn't leave. "Babe, why don't we just stay here for a while?" he said to Sophia, loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. "Your dad needs us, and honestly, this house is way nicer than our apartment." Sophia hesitated. "I don't know, Kyle. Dad needs space to grieve." "He needs family," Kyle said firmly. "We're family." That night, Kyle moved into the master bedroom, my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Elizabeth for 20 years. "Dad," Sophia said quietly when she told me, "Kyle thinks it's better if you take the guest room downstairs. The stairs are hard on your knees, right? This way you don't have to climb them." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say, that was my room, my bed, my life. But Sophia looked so tired, and Kyle was her husband. I told myself it was temporary. So I moved to the guest room. Then 2 weeks later, the guest room wasn't available anymore either. Kyle's mother, Victoria, arrived with 4 suitcases and a scowl. My apartment flooded. She announced, dropping her bags in the foyer like she owned the place. "I'll be staying here until it's fixed." Victoria Pierce was 57, rail thin, and sharp as a knife. She had cold gray eyes and a voice that could cut glass. Within an hour, she'd rearranged the kitchen, criticized the furniture, and told me the lawn needed mowing. "You're retired, aren't you?" she said, looking me up and down. "Might as well make yourself useful." She took the guest room. I ended up on the couch in the living room. "It's just temporary, Dad," Sophia said softly, avoiding my eyes. I told myself the same thing, temporary. But then Brandon showed up. Kyle's younger brother was 30 years old, unemployed, and reeked of cigarettes and cheap beer. He moved into the den without asking, spreading his stuff everywhere: dirty clothes, empty bottles, ashtrays overflowing with cigarette butts. "Just crashing here till I get back on my feet," he said, barely looking at me. Brandon was a gambler. I found that out later. He owed money to the wrong people. Kyle was letting him hide out. Within a month, my house wasn't mine anymore. Victoria treated me like the help. "Marcus, take out the trash. Marcus, wash the dishes. Marcus, the yard looks like hell." Brandon left messes everywhere and never cleaned up. Once I asked him politely to stop smoking inside. He told me to mind my own business. Kyle acted like he was doing me a favor. You should be grateful, Marcus. Not every man gets to have his family close in his old age. I wasn't old. I was 62. But I felt old. Sophia barely spoke to me anymore. She moved through the house like a ghost, eyes down, shoulders hunched. She cooked and cleaned, but the warmth was gone. Sometimes I'd catch her staring out the window, her face blank. One morning I saw a bruise on her forearm, a dark purple mark the size of a handprint. Sophia, I said gently. What happened to your arm? She pulled her sleeve down quickly. I bumped into the counter. It's nothing. Are you sure? I'm fine, Dad. Her voice was sharp, final. She walked away before I could ask anything else. I told myself it was an accident. I told myself Kyle wouldn't hurt her. He was her husband. He brought her flowers. He called her babe. But deep down, something twisted in my gut. I started noticing other things. Sophia flinched when Kyle raised his voice. She apologized constantly, even when she hadn't done anything wrong. She stopped laughing. I should have said something. I should have pulled her aside, asked her if she was okay, told her she could leave Kyle and come live with me. But how could I? Kyle was already living with me. They all were. I wasn't the man of the house anymore. I was a guest, a burden. I started sleeping on the couch every night. I ate whatever leftovers they left me. I mowed the lawn, took out the trash, and kept my mouth shut. And then one night, I heard it. It was past midnight. I couldn't sleep, my back was killing me from the couch. I got up to get a glass of water and heard Kyle's voice drifting from the kitchen. He was on the phone. I stopped in the hallway just out of sight. Yeah, Kyle was saying, his voice low and confident. The old man's sitting on a gold mine and doesn't even realize it. That lot he owns. It's the keystone for the whole Keystone project. 5 million easy, maybe more if the developers are desperate. My blood ran cold. No, he won't sell, Kyle continued. But that's fine. I'm working on it. I just need time. Once we get power of attorney, the lot's ours. The old man's memory is already going. Hell, half the time he doesn't even know what day it is. That was a lie. My memory was fine. Give me 6 months, Kyle said. By this time next year, we'll be 5 million richer. I stood there in the dark hallway, my heart pounding. This wasn't about helping me. It wasn't about family. It was about my land. Kyle wasn't here to take care of me. He was here to take everything I had. I turned and walked silently back to the couch. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I didn't sleep that night. And for the first time since Elizabeth died, I wasn't grieving anymore. I was afraid. 6 months after Sophia's family moved in, I was pushed out of the house entirely. Kyle stood in the doorway of what used to be my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Elizabeth for 30 years, and looked at me like I was a piece of furniture that no longer fit. We need to renovate the living room, he said, his tone casual, almost friendly. You'll stay in the garage for a few weeks, just until the work is done. I opened my mouth to protest, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't anger. It was control. Cold, calculated control. Sure, I said quietly. A few weeks. That was 6 years ago. The garage became my prison. Slowly, methodically. Like a trap closing 1 inch at a time. The first 6 months I was still allowed upstairs. Twice a day, Kyle would unlock the garage door and let me come inside to eat. Breakfast at 7. Dinner at 6. I'd sit at the kitchen table, my own kitchen table, while they ate in the dining room. Leftovers on a chipped plate, a glass of tap water. No conversation. After meals, I was allowed to use the bathroom. 5 minutes. Kyle would stand outside the door, checking his watch. Time's up, old man. then back to the garage. I told myself it was temporary, that once the renovations were done, I'd get my room back. But weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. No construction, no repairs. Just me sleeping on a thin mattress on the concrete floor, staring at the oil stains and counting the days. A year and things got worse. Kyle stopped letting me come upstairs for meals. Instead, he'd bring a plate down once a day, usually around noon. Sometimes it was a sandwich. Sometimes it was leftover takeout cold and congealed. Sometimes it was nothing but a bowl of plain rice. "You're not a guest anymore," he said one afternoon, dropping the plate on the floor like I was a dog. "You want to stay in this house, you work for it." So I worked. I washed Kyle's truck, mowed the lawn, took out the trash, cleaned the gutters, scrubbed the driveway, all while the neighbors walked by, waving politely, thinking I was just an old man keeping busy. Kyle made sure I was only outside when he wanted me to be. The rest of the time, the garage door stayed shut. I tried talking to the mailman once. I waited by the curb, pretending to check the mailbox, and when he walked up, I opened my mouth to say something, anything. But Kyle was watching from the window. He didn't say a word. He just stared. I smiled at the mailman, said the weather was nice, and walked back inside. That night, Kyle came down to the garage with his brother Brandon. "You trying to embarrass me, old man?" Kyle said, his voice low and dangerous. I was just... Brandon's fist slammed into my ribs before I could finish. I crumpled to the floor, gasping for air, and felt something crack. "Next time," Kyle said, crouching down so his face was inches from mine, "you keep your mouth shut." They left me there, curled up on the concrete, clutching my side. I couldn't breathe right for weeks after that. 2 years in, Kyle installed an electronic lock on the garage door. I didn't even know he'd done it until I tried to open the door one morning and heard a sharp beep. A red light blinked on a small keypad mounted next to the handle. I pulled, pushed, slammed my shoulder against the wood. Nothing. I was locked in. From that day forward, I had no control. Kyle decided when I ate, when I worked, when I was allowed to use the bathroom, which by then was never. He left a plastic bucket in the corner of the garage and told me to figure it out. I stopped being a person. I became a thing, a problem, a burden. Victoria, Kyle's mother, came down once a week to check on me. But she wasn't checking. She was enforcing. One afternoon, I hadn't finished sweeping the garage floor by the time she came down. I was 70 years old, exhausted, my ribs still aching from Brandon's last visit, and I was moving slowly. She didn't care. She grabbed a metal rod, one of the old curtain rods I'd stored in the garage years ago, and swung it across my back. The pain was instant, blinding. I fell forward gasping and felt warmth spreading across my shoulder blade. Blood. "Next time," Victoria hissed, "you do what you're told when you're told." I still have the scar. Brandon visited when he was drunk, which was often. He'd stumble down the stairs smelling like whiskey and cigarettes, and he'd find something, anything, to be angry about. One night he kicked me in the ribs while I was lying on my mattress. No reason. No warning, just rage. I heard something crack, felt a sharp stabbing pain every time I breathed. He laughed and walked back upstairs. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I just lay there, clutching my side, trying not to move. 3 years ago, the door stopped opening at all. Kyle didn't come down anymore, didn't bring food, didn't check on me. Instead, he'd slide a plate through a gap at the bottom of the door once a day. Sometimes it was a piece of bread. Sometimes it was half a burrito. Sometimes it was nothing. I lost 50 pounds. My clothes hung off me. My hair turned completely gray. My hands shook when I tried to hold a fork. I counted the days by scratching marks into the concrete wall with my fingernail. One line for every day, every night, every endless suffocating hour. I counted 1,095 marks. 3 years. Kyle had also taken everything. My phone, my wallet, my driver's license, my credit cards, my dignity. He told the neighbors I had Alzheimer's, that I couldn't remember who I was, that I wandered, that I needed to be kept safe. And they believed him. I tried knocking on the garage door once, screaming for help, hoping anyone would hear me. Kyle came down with Brandon. They didn't say a word. They just beat me until I stopped making noise. I never screamed again. Sophia stopped coming down to the garage 2 years ago. At first she'd visit once a week, stand in the doorway, not say much, just look at me with this hollow, broken expression. Then one day she stopped. I didn't blame her. I thought she hated me. Thought she believed Kyle's lies. Thought she'd chosen him over me. But I was wrong. I just didn't know it yet. 3 months ago, something changed. Tanisha Williams, the woman who used to help Elizabeth with the housekeeping, came by the house. Kyle had fired her years earlier, said we didn't need her anymore. But she'd always been kind to me, always treated me like I mattered. And the day Kyle fired her, she did something I'll never forget. She slipped a cell phone into my hand when no one was looking. "Mr. Donovan," she whispered, her eyes full of tears. "Please, call someone. Get help." I hid the phone under my mattress, charged it using an old extension cord I'd found buried in a box of Christmas lights. And I waited. I waited until I was sure. Until I knew they were planning to kill me. And then I made the call. Tonight I sat on that thin, filthy mattress and counted the marks on the wall one more time. 1,095. 3 years. 3 long, brutal, suffocating years. I looked at the phone in my hand, the only lifeline I had left, and whispered into the darkness. "Brother, I have no one left. Only you." 3 months before I called Martin, I discovered they were planning to end my life. It was a Thursday night. Kyle had gone out drinking and came home later than usual, stumbling, slurring his words. I was lying on the mattress in the garage when I heard the electronic lock beep once, then nothing. He'd forgotten to lock it. My heart raced. This was my chance not to escape, but to find out what they were planning. I'd heard whispers through the walls. I knew something was coming. I waited 20 minutes, then crept to the door. It opened. The house was dark, except for a light glowing from the kitchen. I moved down the hallway silent as a ghost, my bare feet barely making a sound. I pressed myself against the wall outside the kitchen doorway and listened. Kyle, Victoria, and Brandon sat around the table. Papers were spread between them. "We're doing this Friday," Kyle said. "1 week from today. The hearing's already scheduled." "And you're sure he'll sign?" Victoria asked. Kyle smirked. "He already did. I had him sign the power of attorney 2 months ago. Told him it was for medical records. He didn't even read it." My stomach dropped. "What about the doctor?" Brandon asked. "Foster," Kyle leaned back. "He owes 80 grand in Vegas. I paid off half. He'll do whatever I say." "And what's he going to say?" "That Marcus has late-stage Alzheimer's," Kyle said flatly. "Memory loss confusion, can't manage his own affairs. The judge will declare him incompetent. Once that happens, I control his finances. The Keystone lot goes on the market Monday, 5 million cash." Brandon whistled. "Split 3 ways. 2.5 for me, 1.5 for you, Mom, 1 for you, Brandon." Victoria nodded. "And what about him?" Brandon asked. "After," Kyle's face went cold. After we sell the lot, we take care of him. Silence. What do you mean? Brandon asked slowly. Kyle leaned forward. 20 Ambien pills ground up in his soup. He goes to sleep, never wakes up. We dump him in Forest Park. Cops find him a week later. Poor old guy with Alzheimer's wandered off, died of exposure. Happens all the time. I couldn't breathe. Victoria didn't flinch. Now, what if someone asks questions? Who's going to ask? Kyle shrugged. The neighbors think he's got dementia. Dr. Foster's already documented it. Sophia won't say a word, she's too scared. And Marcus, he'll be gone. Brandon hesitated. I don't know, man. That's $5 million, Kyle snapped. You want your cut or not? Brandon looked down. Yeah, I'm in. Victoria sighed. Good. The sooner the better. Feeding him, housing him, it's like taking care of a stray dog. Better to put him down. Her words hit me like a fist. Kyle stood. Friday 9 a.m. courthouse. Foster meets us there. After the judge signs off, we move fast. 2 weeks and it's done. He walked toward the hallway. Toward me. I scrambled back, my heart hammering, and slipped into the garage just as I heard his footsteps. I collapsed on the mattress, shaking. They were going to end me. Not just take my money. Not just steal my land. They were going to take my life and make it look like an accident. 1 week. I had 1 week to live. I lay there in the dark, my mind racing. I had no phone, no allies, no way out. Kyle had forged my signature. Dr. Foster was bought. The hearing was set. Sophia was too terrified to help. I was alone. But then I remembered. Tanisha, the phone she'd hidden for me in the toolbox, and the one person I hadn't spoken to in 35 years. Martin. That's why I called him. That's why 3 months later on, night 1095, I finally turned on that old flip phone and dialed the number I'd memorized decades ago. Because I knew if I didn't, I'd die in this garage, and no one would ever know the truth. Now, sitting here in the present, the dead phone still warm in my hand, I hear it. The low rumble of an engine. I push myself up, my legs shaking, and press my face to the small garage window. Headlights cut through the darkness, growing brighter as they turn into the driveway. My heart pounds so hard I can feel it in my throat. A black pickup truck pulls to a stop. The engine cuts off. The door opens. A man steps out, the tall, broad-shouldered gray hair cropped short in a military cut. Even in the dim light, even after 35 years, I'd know that silhouette anywhere. My twin brother, Martin. He stands there for a moment, scanning the house, his posture alert, controlled. This isn't the architect I used to know. This is the FBI agent. The man who spent 20 years hunting criminals. The man who doesn't hesitate, doesn't second guess. He looks toward the garage. Our eyes meet through the window. For a heartbeat, neither of us moves. Then he nods once, a small, sharp gesture that says everything. I'm here. Hold on. My legs give out. I sink to my knees, pressing my forehead against the cold glass, tears streaming down my face. After 35 years of silence. After 3 years of hell. After 1,095 days of being forgotten, beaten, starved, and broken. My brother came. He's here. I didn't wait for Martin to knock on the door. The moment I saw his truck pull into the driveway, I knew what I had to do. Kyle was passed out upstairs, drunk as usual. The garage door was still unlocked from earlier when he'd stumbled home. This was my chance. I slipped out into the cold night. It was 3 a.m. The air bit at my skin. I had no shoes, no jacket, just the ragged clothes I'd been wearing for weeks. But I didn't care. I ran. 2 miles. That's how far the Chevron station was on Highway 26. I used to drive past it every day on my way to the office. Back then, 2 miles was nothing. Now it felt like a marathon. My bare feet slapped against the pavement. Every step sent a jolt of pain up my legs. Sharp rocks cut into my soles. I felt blood warm and sticky, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. My lungs burned. My ribs, still cracked from Victoria's beating 2 weeks ago, screamed with every breath. My legs shook. I stumbled more than once, catching myself on mailboxes, tree trunks, anything to keep moving. The streetlights blurred. My vision swam. For a moment, I thought I'd collapse right there on the side of the road. But I didn't. Because Martin was waiting. By the time I reached the gas station, I could barely stand. The fluorescent lights above the pumps were blindingly bright after 3 years of darkness. I staggered into the lot, gasping, and leaned against the side of the building. Inside, through the glass window, I saw a young woman behind the counter, maybe 25, blonde ponytail, sipping coffee. She looked up and froze. I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me. He was skeletal, hollowed cheeks, sunken eyes, gray hair matted and wild hanging past his shoulders, a beard unkempt and filthy, his clothes ripped jeans and a shirt so stained it was hard to tell what color it used to be, hung off his frame like rags on a scarecrow. He looked like a ghost. No, he looked like a corpse. The woman behind the counter pulled out her phone, her face pale. She was going to call the cops. "Please," I whispered, but my voice didn't carry. My throat was too dry. That's when I heard it, the low rumble of a diesel engine. I turned. A black Ford F-150 pulled into the gas station and stopped under the lights. The door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, gray hair cropped military short. He wore a black leather jacket, jeans, and boots. His face was weathered but strong. His eyes sharp, alert, scanning the parking lot like a hunter. Martin. Even after 35 years, I'd know him anywhere. We were identical twins, born 11 minutes apart. We used to finish each other's sentences. People couldn't tell us apart. But now the difference between us was brutal. He looked like a man who'd spent his life staying strong, lifting weights, running, staying sharp. A man who'd been an FBI agent for 20 years and never let himself go soft. I looked like a man who'd spent 3 years dying. He saw me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his face changed. The hard, controlled mask of the agent cracked. His eyes widened, his jaw tightened. "Marcus!" My name came out as a whisper, broken and raw. I tried to speak, but my legs gave out. I collapsed against the wall, sliding down to the pavement. Martin was there in 3 strides. He dropped to his knees in front of me, his hands gripping my shoulders. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "What did they do to you?" I couldn't answer. I just looked at him. This man I hadn't seen in 35 years. This man I'd fought with over something so stupid, I couldn't even remember what started it. And I broke. I collapsed forward into his arms, and I cried. Not quiet tears, not dignified grief. I sobbed like a child, loud, gasping, desperate. 3 years of pain, 3 years of fear, 3 years of being less than human. It all came pouring out. Martin held me. His arms were strong, solid, real. He didn't say anything at first. He just held me and let me fall apart. When I finally caught my breath, he pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick. "I should have come sooner. I should have..." His voice cracked. "I should have never let 35 years go by." "You're here now," I managed. "That's all that matters." He helped me to my feet, one arm around my waist, supporting most of my weight. He guided me to his truck and opened the passenger door. "Sit," he said gently. I sank into the seat. It was warm, soft, clean. I hadn't sat in a real car seat in 3 years. Martin reached into the back and pulled out a bottle of water and a wrapped sandwich, turkey and cheese still fresh from a deli. "Drink slowly," he said, handing me the water. "Don't chug it. Your stomach won't handle it." I took a sip. The water was cold, clean, perfect. I wanted to gulp it down, but I forced myself to go slow. Martin crouched beside the open door, watching me. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about Elizabeth's death, about Sophia moving in, about Kyle, Victoria, and Brandon taking over, about being pushed to the couch, then the garage, about the beatings, the starvation, the 3 years of hell. I told him about the plan, the fake Alzheimer's diagnosis, the court hearing, the $5 million, the 20 Ambien pills. By the time I finished, Martin's face had gone cold. Not angry, colder than that. It was the face of a man who'd spent 2 decades hunting criminals, a man who knew exactly what needed to be done. "When's the hearing?" he asked. "Friday, 9 a.m., 6 days from now." Martin nodded slowly. "All right, here's what we're going to do." He stood and closed the door, then walked around to the driver's side and climbed in. The engine rumbled to life. "You're going to Seattle," he said. "I've got a hotel room waiting, Hilton Suite 512. You're going to eat, sleep, and get your strength back. You don't leave that room. You don't call anyone but me." "What about you?" I asked. Martin looked at me, his eyes hard as steel. "I'm going back to Portland. I'm going to take your place." I stared at him. "What?" "We're identical twins, Marcus. I'm going to live your life for the next 6 days. I'm going to let them think I'm you. And I'm going to gather every piece of evidence we need to bury them. But they'll hurt you. Let them try." He put the truck in gear and pulled out of the gas station. I looked at him, my brother, my twin, the man I hadn't spoken to in 35 years. "Why?" I whispered. "After everything, after all this time, why are you doing this?" Martin glanced at me, and for the first time I saw a faint smile. "Because you're my brother," he said simply. "And I should have been there all along." I closed my eyes, leaning back in the seat. For the first time in 3 years, I felt safe. "I trust you," I said. "Good," Martin replied. "Now rest. We've got work to do." Martin pulled the truck off Highway 26 and into an empty gravel lot behind a shuttered lumberyard. The sky was still black, maybe 4:30 in the morning. He killed the engine. For a moment, we just sat there, 2 68-year-old men who looked more alike than either of us had remembered. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's do this." He reached behind the seat and pulled out a black duffel bag, unzipped it. Inside, a folded pair of dark jeans, a clean gray Henley white socks, a pair of New Balance sneakers. He handed them to me one by one like he was passing sacraments. "Get changed," he said. "There's a rest stop bathroom 200 yards that way if you need privacy." I shook my head. I'm past privacy. I peeled off the torn, oil-stained shirt I'd been wearing for weeks. My ribs showed through my skin like ladder rungs. Martin's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just kept digging through the bag. He set $500 in 20s on the dashboard, then a black Visa card with the name Michael Brennan printed on it, then a brass key attached to a plastic fob. "Hilton Seattle Room 512. "The card's under an alias," he said. Limits 10 grand. Use it for food, clothes, whatever you need. The room's paid through next Friday. Stay there, eat, sleep. Get your strength back. I nodded, pulling the Henley over my head. It smelled like detergent, and something faintly sweet cinnamon, maybe. It had been so long since I'd worn something clean. Martin stood and stripped off his jacket, then his flannel shirt, then his jeans. He reached for my filthy clothes, the ones that reeked of oil and sweat and 3 years of hell. Your turn, I said. He pulled on my torn pants, my stained shirt. He even took the frayed canvas shoes I'd been wearing, shoes that had once been white and were now the color of rust. Then he sat back down in the driver's seat and flipped down the visor. There was a small mirror clipped to it. He pulled out a disposable razor and a travel-size can of shaving cream from the duffel. Hold this. He handed me a flashlight. I aimed the beam at his face while he lathered up and started shaving, methodically, slowly. He'd always kept a neat beard. Now he scraped it all off, leaving his face bare and gaunt, just like mine. Then he pulled out a pair of scissors and went to work on his hair. Gray clumps fell onto his lap, onto the floor mat. He didn't stop until it was short, uneven, unwashed looking. When he was done, he turned to me. It was like looking into a cracked mirror. Jesus, I whispered. Close enough, he muttered. He reached back into the duffel and pulled out a small black pouch, unzipped it. Inside were 5 tiny cameras, no bigger than shirt buttons each, with adhesive backing. A voice recorder the size of a thumb drive, and a folding knife, slim and sharp, with a clip designed to fit inside the sole of a shoe. I'll plant the cameras in the house, he said. Living room, kitchen, your bedroom, garage. The recorder stays on me. If they say anything useful, we'll have it. And the knife. Insurance. He slid it into the heel of my old shoe, now on his foot. 20 years in the bureau, Marcus. I know how to take a hit. And I know how to make bad people pay for what they've done. I felt my throat tighten. What if they hurt you? He looked at me with those pale blue eyes, our mother's eyes, and for the first time in 35 years, I saw the brother I'd lost. They'll try, he said, but I've been hurt before. I'll survive. He zipped the duffel and handed it to me. There's a cab company on speed dial in that phone. Call them when you're ready. Stay in Seattle. Eat 3 meals a day. Sleep in a real bed. I'll call you every night at 10 o'clock. Do not call me. Do not contact anyone. Understood. I nodded. Good. He opened the driver's door. Now get out. Your ride's coming. I climbed out, clutching the duffel like a life raft. A pair of headlights appeared at the edge of the lot, a yellow taxi, right on time. Martin must have called ahead. I walked toward it, then stopped and turned back. Martin was standing beside the truck, one hand raised in a slow wave. His face, my face, was lit by the glow of the dome light. Then he turned and started walking in the opposite direction, toward the highway, toward the house, toward the hell I'd just escaped. I climbed into the back of the cab. Where to? The driver asked. Seattle, I said quietly. Hilton, downtown. As we pulled away, I looked back through the rear window. Martin was still walking, a small figure swallowed by the dark. Thank you, brother, I thought. And then he was gone. Room 512 at the Hilton Seattle became my entire world for 7 days. 7 of the longest days of my life. I arrived just after sunrise that first morning, still wearing the clean clothes Martin had given me, still smelling faintly of cinnamon and hope. The lobby was quiet. A young woman at the front desk smiled politely and handed me a keycard without asking questions. I took the elevator up alone. The room was nothing special. 2 queen beds, a flat-screen TV, a view of the I-5 overpass. But to me it was a palace. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just staring. A real bed, A bathroom with a door that locked from the inside. A thermostat I could control. I locked the door behind me, slid the chain, and walked straight to the bathroom. I turned on the shower as hot as it would go and stepped under the spray fully clothed. I needed to feel it. Needed to know I was real, that I was out, that the nightmare was behind me, at least for now. The water turned gray, then brown, swirling down the drain. 3 years of oil and concrete dust and humiliation washing away. I stripped off the wet clothes and stood there naked and shaking and scrubbed myself with the little bar of soap until my skin was raw. Then I did it again. 2 full showers back to back, because once wasn't enough to erase what I'd been through. When I finally stepped out, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The man staring back at me was a stranger. Sunken cheeks, hollow eyes, ribs like prison bars, gray hair plastered to my skull. But I was still standing, still breathing, still alive. I wrapped myself in one of those thick white hotel towels and collapsed onto the bed. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I thought I'd lie there for a few minutes, maybe order room service, maybe call Martin. Instead, I passed out. I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. The room was dark. I fumbled for the phone on the nightstand, squinting at the screen. 10 p.m. Martin. Hello. My voice was hoarse. It's me. His voice was low, tight. I'm inside. Are you okay? There was a pause. Then they hit me. Kyle and that brother of his. Knocked me around pretty good when I walked in. I played the part, acted confused, scared, just like you would have. It worked. My stomach twisted. Martin, I'm fine. He cut me off. Took worse in Quantico. Listen, I got 2 cameras up already. One in the living room, one in the kitchen. I'll get the rest tomorrow when they're out. What about Sophia? Another pause. Longer this time. She's scared, Marcus. Real scared. She didn't say a word to me. Just looked at me, looked at you, and walked away. I closed my eyes. She hates me. No, Martin said quietly. She doesn't. But we'll talk more tomorrow. Get some sleep. You need it. The line went dead. I sat there in the dark, staring at the red glow of the alarm clock, and tried not to think about my brother taking punches meant for me. The next 2 days blurred together. I slept. God, I slept like I'd never slept before. 16, 18 hours at a time. My body was a car that had been running on fumes for 3 years, and now it was finally allowed to shut down and repair itself. I woke only to eat room service burgers, club sandwiches, anything heavy and hot, and then I'd crawl back into bed and sink under again. Martin called every night at 10. Short updates. Calm. Professional. Camera 3 is up. Got the garage. Victoria's on tape yelling at me. Called me useless. We've got it. I'm fine. Eat. Rest. I'll call tomorrow. I trusted him. I had to. On the 4th night, the call came early. 9:45. I grabbed the phone on the first ring. Martin. Marcus. His voice was different. Softer. Sad. What happened? Are you hurt? No. But... He exhaled slowly. It's Sophia. My heart stopped. What about her? She's a victim, too. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the mattress. What? Kyle hits her, Marcus. I saw it tonight. He grabbed her by the arm, shoved her into the wall, screamed in her face. She didn't fight back. Didn't say a word. Just took it. I got it on camera. All of it. The phone slipped from my hand. I slid off the bed and onto the floor, my back against the nightstand, my knees pulled to my chest. My daughter, my little girl. I thought she'd betrayed me, thought she'd chosen them. But she hadn't. She'd been trapped just like I had, maybe longer. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. Is she okay? Physically, yeah. Bruises on her arms. But Marcus, she's breaking. I can see it. She's not the enemy. She's surviving. I pressed my fist against my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. We're going to get her out, Martin said. I promise you. But you need to hold on a little longer. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Okay? Get some rest. I'll call you tomorrow. But I didn't rest. I sat on that hotel floor until dawn, staring at nothing, thinking about my daughter, and hating myself for not seeing it sooner. The 5th and 6th days were a waiting game. Martin called each night with updates. He'd captured hours of footage, Kyle threatening him, Victoria screaming, Brandon trashing the house. He'd recorded phone calls, gotten statements on tape. He'd even managed to sneak out and meet with a contact at the FBI, someone he trusted, someone who'd been building a case quietly. We've got Kyle on conspiracy, Martin said on the 6th night. We've got Dr. Foster on fraud. We've got Victoria as an accessory. It's airtight, Marcus. All we need now is the trial. When? Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Multnomah County Courthouse. I'll pick you up at 6. My pulse kicked up. I'm ready? Good. Pack light. Wear something decent. And Marcus. Yeah. This ends tomorrow. Now it was the 7th night, and I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The trial was less than 12 hours away. I'd rehearsed my testimony in my head 100 times. I'd imagined walking into that courtroom, seeing Kyle's face when he realized I was alive, that I'd escaped, that his whole sick plan had fallen apart. But more than anything, I thought about Sophia. I thought about the little girl who used to sit on my shoulders at the park, the teenager who'd helped me draft blueprints at the kitchen table, the woman who'd stood beside her mother's hospital bed and held my hand while Elizabeth took her last breath. She wasn't my enemy. She was my daughter. And tomorrow I was going to save her. I closed my eyes and whispered into the dark. Tomorrow I'm going to save you, sweetheart. I promise. 6 o'clock. Friday morning, there was a knock on my door. I was already dressed, khakis, a button-down shirt, the nicest clothes I'd bought with Martin's Visa card. I opened the door, and there he was, clean-shaven, hair combed, wearing a cheap gray suit that looked like it had seen better days. He looked like me, or rather like the version of me Kyle expected to see. Ready? He asked. I nodded. Let's go. We didn't talk much on the drive back to Portland. Martin kept his eyes on the road hands, steady on the wheel of the Ford. The sky was the color of concrete, heavy and low, like it was pressing down on the city. Rain spattered the windshield in bursts. Typical Oregon morning. By the time we pulled into the parking garage behind the Multnomah County Courthouse, it was 8:45. Martin killed the engine and turned to me. You remember the plan? Yeah. He reached into the back seat and pulled out a black duffel. Unzipped it. Inside a gray hoodie, a black baseball cap, and a disposable face mask. Put these on, he said. Pull the hood up. Keep your head down. I'll go in first. You wait 5 minutes, then come in through the north entrance. Courtroom 4. Sit in the back row, far left corner. There's a support beam there. Stay behind it. Don't let anyone see your face. When I give the signal, you stand up. Not before. I pulled the hoodie over my head, tugged the cap low, and fitted the mask over my nose and mouth. I looked at myself in the side mirror. Just another guy trying not to get sick. Anonymous. What's the signal? I asked. Martin smiled cold and sharp. You'll know. He got out of the truck and walked toward the courthouse entrance, shoulders slightly hunched, movements, a little stiff, playing the part of a man who'd been beaten down. I watched him disappear through the glass doors. I waited, counted to 300. Then I climbed out and made my way to the north entrance, head down, hands stuffed in my pockets. The lobby was busy, lawyers in suits, clerks with folders, a couple of cops standing by the metal detectors. Nobody looked at me twice. Courtroom 4 was on the second floor. I took the stairs, slipped inside, and made my way to the back row. The room was old wood paneling, high ceilings, rows of wooden benches like church pews. I sat in the far left corner behind a thick support column and pulled my hood a little lower. And then I looked up. There he was, Martin, sitting at the defendant's table, hands folded in front of him, back straight. He looked calm, alert, healthy, too healthy. I saw Kyle notice it too. He was sitting in the front row on the right side next to a man in an expensive navy suit, his lawyer, I assumed. Kyle's eyes were locked on Martin, and his face had gone pale. His mouth hung open slightly, like he couldn't quite process what he was seeing. Because the man sitting at that table wasn't the broken, starving, confused old man Kyle had locked in a garage for 3 years. This man looked sharp, present, dangerous. I scanned the rest of the room. Victoria was there, seated 2 rows behind Kyle, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. Brandon slouched beside her, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. And next to Kyle, in a pale blue blouse and dark slacks, was Sophia, my daughter. She looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and even from where I sat, I could see the dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, knuckles white. She wasn't looking at Martin. She was staring at the floor. I wanted to run to her, to wrap my arms around her and tell her it was going to be okay. But I stayed still, stayed hidden. A door at the front of the room opened, and a man in a dark uniform stepped out. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Hawkins presiding. Everyone stood. A moment later, the judge entered, a woman in her early 60s, gray hair pulled into a tight bun, black robes flowing behind her. She took her seat at the bench and gestured for everyone else to sit. Be seated. The room settled. Judge Hawkins opened a file in front of her and scanned it briefly, then looked up. This is case number 24, CV8873, Pierce versus Donovan. Petitioners are requesting the appointment of a legal guardian for the respondent, Marcus James Donovan, on the grounds of mental incapacity. She glanced toward Martin. Mr. Donovan, do you have representation? Martin shook his head. No, Your Honor. I'm representing myself. Kyle's lawyer, a tall man with slicked back hair and a too-white smile, stood up immediately. Your Honor, that's precisely the issue. Mr. Donovan has been diagnosed with late-stage Alzheimer's disease and is not mentally competent to represent himself or make legal decisions. We have medical documentation from Dr. Alan Foster confirming the diagnosis. Judge Hawkins frowned. Is Dr. Foster present? Yes, Your Honor. A man in the third row stood up, thin, fidgety, wearing a wrinkled blazer. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. You'll be called to testify, the judge said. Dr. Foster nodded and sat back down, wiping his palms on his pants. Kyle's lawyer continued. Your Honor, my clients, Mr. Kyle Pierce and his family, have been caring for Mr. Donovan for the past 3 years. They've provided him with food, shelter, and medical attention. However, his condition has deteriorated significantly. He's become a danger to himself. We're here today to request that the court appoint Mr. Pierce as his legal guardian so that he can manage Mr. Donovan's affairs and ensure his safety. I felt my jaw clench. The lie was so smooth, so practiced, like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. Judge Hawkins turned her gaze to Martin. "Mr. Donovan, do you understand why you're here today?" The courtroom went silent. Martin looked up at the judge. His face was calm. His eyes were ice. And then he smiled. Not a friendly smile, a hunter's smile. "I understand perfectly, Your Honor." A man in a charcoal suit stood up from the bench behind Martin. I hadn't noticed him before, mid-50s, silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, leather briefcase in hand. He moved with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from decades in a courtroom. "Your Honor," he said, his voice calm and clear. "My name is Robert Mercer. I'm representing Mr. Donovan, and we have evidence." Kyle's lawyer shot to his feet. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We were not notified of any—" Judge Hawkins raised a hand. "Mr. Morgan, sit down. Mr. Mercer, proceed." Robert Mercer opened his briefcase and pulled out a small laptop. He walked to the front of the courtroom and set it on the clerk's table. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to present video evidence that directly contradicts the claims made by the petitioners." The judge leaned forward slightly. "See video evidence of what Mr. Mercer, of abuse, coercion, fraud, and conspiracy to commit harm." The room went dead silent. Judge Hawkins glanced at Kyle's lawyer, then back at Mercer. "Proceed." Mercer opened the laptop and pressed a key. A moment later, the large, flat-screen monitor mounted on the wall flickered to life. The first image was grainy but clear enough. A living room, my living room. I recognized the leather couch, the coffee table, the family photos on the mantel that I hadn't been allowed to see in 3 years. And then Kyle walked into frame. He was holding a stack of papers in one hand. Sophia sat on the couch, her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale. Kyle dropped the papers onto the table in front of her. "Sign it," he said. His voice was cold, flat. "I don't understand what this is," Sophia said quietly. "You don't need to understand. Just sign." "Kyle, He grabbed her by the arm and yanked her to her feet. She gasped. On the screen, you could see his fingers digging into her skin. "Sign the damn papers, Sophia. You're hurting me. I'll hurt you worse if you don't do what I say." She was crying now, trying to pull away, but he shoved her back down onto the couch. She picked up the pen with shaking hands and signed. The video cut out. I looked at Sophia in the courtroom. She was doubled over, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. Victoria stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Brandon had gone pale. Kyle's face was red, his hands gripping the armrest of his chair. "Your Honor," Mercer said quietly, "that document was a financial power of attorney giving Mr. Pierce full control of Mr. Donovan's assets. It was signed under duress." Judge Hawkins's expression was stone. "Continue." Mercer pressed another key. The second video began. Same living room, different angle. This time it was nighttime, the lamps were on curtains drawn. Kyle, Victoria, and Brandon were sitting around the coffee table. A bottle of whiskey sat between them. "So when do we do it?" Brandon asked. "Soon," Kyle said. He was leaning back, arms crossed, looking calm. Too calm. "Once the guardianship goes through, we'll have legal access to everything. The land, the accounts, the house. Then we move." "And what about him?" Victoria's voice, sharp, impatient. Kyle smiled. "We give him the pills. 20 Ambien crushed up in his soup. He goes to sleep, doesn't wake up." We call 911, say we found him unresponsive. Doctor signs off on natural causes. Foster owes us, he'll do it. Then we're clear. Victoria laughed. It was an ugly sound. Good. The old man's been a waste of space for years. Better he goes now and saves us the cost of feeding him. Brandon raised his glass. To the Keystone Project. Kyle clinked his glass against his brother's. $5 million. Split 3 ways. The screen went black. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. I looked at the jury box empty since this was just a preliminary hearing. But the few people in the gallery were staring at the screen in horror. A woman in the second row had her hand over her mouth. Kyle shot to his feet. That's fake. That video is doctored, Your Honor. This is a setup. Sit down, Mr. Pierce. Judge Hawkins said, her voice like ice. Your Honor, I demand to know where this footage came from. Sit down. Kyle sat, but his eyes were wild. He looked at Martin, then at his lawyer, then back at the screen. Mercer pressed the key one more time. The third video was shorter. An office. A man sitting behind a desk, Dr. Alan Foster. Kyle was standing in front of him, holding a thick envelope. This is $10,000, Kyle said. Cash, untraceable. Foster's hands were shaking as he reached for the envelope. And you're sure no one will know. You write the report. Late-stage Alzheimer's. Incompetent. Can't manage his own affairs. You backdate it 6 months. That's it. Foster nodded, tucking the envelope into his desk drawer. Okay. I'll have it ready by Monday. Good. The video ended. Dr. Foster was on his feet now, face white as paper. Your Honor, I can explain. Save it for your arraignment, Judge Hawkins said coldly. She looked at the bailiff. Detain Dr. Foster, and Mr. Pierce, and Mrs. Pierce, and Mr. Brandon Pierce. Kyle exploded. This is bullshit. That video is fake. Someone set us up, Your Honor. You can't. I can, and I will. Judge Hawkins's gaze shifted to Martin. Mr. Donovan, do you know who recorded these videos? Martin stood, slowly. He looked at Kyle for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across Kyle's face, confusion maybe. Fear. I did, Martin said. Kyle's mouth fell open. You couldn't have. You were locked in the... He stopped. His face went from red to white in seconds, because he'd just realized something was very, very wrong. The man standing at the defendant's table wasn't the broken, starving, confused prisoner he'd locked in a garage. This man was sharp, strong, clear-eyed. Kyle looked at him like he was seeing a ghost. Who the hell are you? Kyle whispered. Martin didn't answer. Instead, he turned his head slightly and looked toward the back of the courtroom. Toward me. He gave a single, small nod. That was the signal. I stood up, pulled off the baseball cap, tugged down the face mask, let the hood fall back, and stepped out from behind the support column. Still here, comment twin below, you'll understand why in a moment. Kyle just asked, who the hell are you? And the answer is about to destroy him. Quick note. This story is fictional, exploring real themes like elder abuse. If you'd prefer to stop, feel free. Ready for the truth? Let's go. I walked down the center aisle of the courtroom. Each step echoed in the silence. Every head turned. Every pair of eyes followed me. I could feel the weight of their stares. Confusion. Shock. Fear. Because the man they were looking at was supposed to be sitting at the defendant's table. But he was also standing right there in front of them, walking toward the bench. 2 identical men, same height, Same build, same gray hair, same face. I reached the front of the courtroom and stopped a few feet from Martin. We stood side by side facing the room. Facing them, the silence stretched. Someone in the back row gasped. A woman whispered, "Oh my God." Kyle's face had gone white. Not pale white. Like every drop of blood had drained out of him. His mouth hung open, his hands gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles had turned bone white. Victoria let out a strangled sound, half scream, half gasp, and stumbled backward, knocking into the bench behind her. Brandon was frozen eyes darting between me and Martin like he was watching a magic trick he couldn't figure out. Judge Hawkins leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Would someone like to explain what's happening here?" I turned to face her. My voice was steady, calm. After 3 years of silence, after 1,095 nights of hell, I finally had the chance to speak. "Your Honor, my name is Marcus James Donovan. I'm 68 years old. I'm the man Kyle Pierce and his family held prisoner in my own home for 3 years. I gestured toward Martin. The man sitting at the defendant's table is my twin brother, Martin Donovan. We switched places 6 days ago so that he could gather evidence while I recovered in a safe location." The courtroom erupted. Kyle shot to his feet. "That's impossible, He pointed at Martin, then at me, his hand shaking. "You were in the garage, I saw you. You saw my brother," I said. My voice was louder now, cutting through the noise. "Martin took my place. He lived in that garage. He let you hit him. He let you starve him. And the whole time he was recording everything you did." Kyle's lawyer stood up, his face red. "Your Honor, this is absurd. This is clearly a coordinated fraud." "Sit down, mister," Morgan, Judge Hawkins, said sharply. She looked at Martin. "Mr. Martin Donovan, is this true?" Martin stood. He was calm, composed, every inch the federal agent he used to be. "Yes, Your Honor. My brother called me 6 days ago. We hadn't spoken in 35 years, but he was desperate. He told me his family was planning to have him declared incompetent, steal his assets, and then end his life. I'm a retired FBI agent. I know how these cases work. I knew that if Marcus tried to escape and report them, they'd claim he was delusional, that he'd wandered off, that he was suffering from dementia. So we came up with a plan." He gestured toward me. "We look alike. Always have. I took his place. I let them think I was Marcus. I installed hidden cameras throughout the house. I recorded conversations. I gathered evidence. And when I had enough, I contacted Robert Mercer and arranged for this hearing." Judge Hawkins stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at me. "Mr. Marcus Donovan, can you prove you are who you say you are?" "Yes, Your Honor." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my driver's license, my passport, and a folded piece of paper. "This is my identification. And this." I unfolded the paper. Is a letter from my late wife Elizabeth, written 2 weeks before she died. She mentions my twin brother Martin by name. She also mentions the Keystone land, which Kyle was planning to steal. I handed the documents to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. Judge Hawkins examined them carefully. Then she nodded. "What? These appear legitimate. Bailiff, take fingerprints from both men for verification." "Yes, Your Honor." While the bailiff moved to retrieve the fingerprint kit, I turned and looked at the gallery. And that's when I saw her. Sophia. She was sitting in the second row, hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her eyes, my daughter's eyes, were locked on mine. "Sophia," I said softly. She stood up, shaking. "Dad!" My throat tightened. I nodded. Dad! Her voice cracked. She pushed past Kyle's lawyer, stumbled into the aisle, and ran toward me. Dad, oh my God, Dad. I met her halfway. She crashed into me, arms wrapping around my shoulders, and I held her. Held my little girl. She was sobbing into my chest, her whole body shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, I didn't know what to do. He hurt me. He said he'd hurt you worse if I didn't listen. I'm so sorry. Shh, it's okay. You're safe now. I've got you. I looked over her shoulder and saw Kyle standing there, his face twisted with rage and panic. You, he hissed. You ruined everything. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. Judge Hawkins's gavel came down hard. Order everyone sit down. Sophia pulled back, wiping her eyes. I guided her to a seat in the front row, then returned to the center of the courtroom. Judge Hawkins looked at me, her expression grave. Mr. Donovan, I want to hear your full testimony. Everything that happened. From the beginning. She gestured to the witness stand. Please take the stand. I walked to the wooden chair beside her bench. The bailiff stepped forward with a Bible. Raise your right hand. I did. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. I placed my left hand on the Bible and sat down. The courtroom was silent now. Waiting. I looked out at the faces staring back at me. Robert Mercer, calm and ready. Martin standing tall and strong. Sophia wiping tears from her cheeks. And Kyle, who had locked me in a garage for 1,095 days. Who had stolen my home, my dignity, my life. Who had beaten my daughter and planned to end my life for money. I locked eyes with him, and I began to speak. I stood at the witness stand, my hand still resting on the Bible, and took a breath. Your Honor, my name is Marcus James Donovan. I'm 68 years old. 8 years ago, I lost my wife, Elizabeth. She died of lung disease. We'd been married for 30 years. When she passed, I didn't know how to keep going. My daughter Sophia asked to move in with me to help. I said yes. I paused, looked at Sophia in the front row. She was crying. 2 weeks later, her husband, Kyle Pierce, showed up. He said he'd stay a few days. Those days became permanent. He took my bedroom. I slept on the couch. 2 months later, his mother, Victoria, moved in. Then his brother, Brandon. They treated me like a servant in my own home. I took another breath. 6 years ago, they moved me to the garage. Kyle said I was in the way. That became 1,095 days. 3 years. I was locked in with a thin mattress, a plastic bucket for a toilet, and a sealed window. No heat in winter, no air in summer. 1 meal a day, leftovers, scraps. Sometimes I went 2 days without food. I lost 50 pounds. Someone in the gallery gasped. I rolled up my left sleeve, showing a long scar on my forearm. This is from Victoria Pierce. She hit me with a metal pipe when I asked for more food. Victoria looked away. I rolled up my right pant leg, revealing another scar. This is from Brandon Pierce. He kicked me, broke 2 of my ribs. No one took me to a hospital. I let the pant leg fall and looked at the judge. Your Honor. I counted the days by scratching marks into the wall with my fingernail. I had no phone, no contact with anyone. I didn't know if anyone remembered I existed. My voice broke. And the worst part was that I thought my daughter had abandoned me. I thought Sophia hated me. I turned to Sophia, but I was wrong. She was a victim too. Kyle hurt her, threatened her, controlled her, and I didn't protect her. Sophia stood up, tears streaming. "Dad, no, it's not your fault." Kyle grabbed her wrist and yanked her down. "Sit down," he hissed. "Let go of me." Sophia cried. Judge Hawkins slammed her gavel. "Mr. Pierce, release her immediately." Kyle didn't move. His grip tightened. "Bailiff." Two officers stepped forward, and Kyle finally let go. Sophia stumbled back, clutching her wrist. Judge Hawkins's face was thunderous. "Mr. Pierce, you just assaulted a witness in my courtroom. That was your last mistake." She turned to the bailiff. "Arrest Kyle Pierce Victoria, Pierce Brandon Pierce, and Dr. Alan Foster immediately. Charges are as follows: felony assault conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse fraud, and falsifying medical records. They are to be held without bail pending trial." The courtroom erupted. Kyle shot to his feet. "You can't do this. This is a setup. That old man is lying." "Sit down," Judge Hawkins roared. Two officers grabbed Kyle by the arms. He thrashed, trying to pull free, but they held him firm. One pulled out a pair of handcuffs and snapped them around his wrists. "Get off me, get your hands off me." Victoria stood up, her face pale and panicked. "Your Honor, please, there's been a misunderstanding." "Ma'am, turn around and put your hands behind your back," an officer said firmly. I didn't do anything, I was just—" The officer didn't wait. He turned her around and cuffed her wrists behind her back. Brandon didn't resist. He just sat there, staring at the floor, as another officer approached and snapped the handcuffs around his wrists without a word. Dr. Foster was trembling, his face ashen. "Your Honor, I made a mistake. I didn't mean for any of this." "You'll have a chance to explain yourself to a jury," Judge Hawkins said coldly. "Bailiff, remove them. All of them." The officers moved efficiently. Kyle was still shouting as they dragged him toward the side door, his voice echoing off the wood-paneled walls. "This isn't over. You hear me, old man? This isn't over." Victoria was silent now, her head down, shoulders shaking. Brandon walked like a ghost, eyes empty. "Doctor." Foster stumbled, nearly tripping over his own feet, his hands shaking violently in the cuffs. One by one, the officers led them out of the courtroom. The heavy wooden door swung shut behind them, with a final echoing thud. They were being dragged out, handcuffs glinting under the courtroom lights. Kyle was still fighting, twisting against the officer's grip, his face red with rage. "You think this is over?" he screamed, his voice raw. "You think you've won? When I get out, old man, you'll regret this. I'll make you—" One of the officers yanked him hard toward the door. "Keep moving." Kyle spat in my direction, his eyes wild. "I'll make you pay for this." The door slammed shut behind him. Victoria and Brandon had already been taken through the side exit, silent and shaken. "But Dr. Foster," he stopped. The officer holding his arm paused as Foster turned back toward me, his face pale and trembling. "Mr. Donovan," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. I needed the money. I have debts, I looked at him. This man who had sold his medical license, his oath, his integrity for $10,000. "You had a choice, doctor," I said quietly. "You chose money over your conscience. You chose to help them destroy me." Foster's face crumpled. He opened his mouth to say something else, but the officer pulled him away. "Let's go." And then they were all gone. The courtroom fell into a deep, heavy silence, the kind of silence that follows a storm. The spectators had left. The clerk was gathering papers. Judge Hawkins was still at her bench watching me. I turned. Sophia was standing in the aisle, her arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. And then slowly she walked toward me. She stopped a few feet away. Her hands were shaking. Her lips were trembling. Dad, she whispered, and then she dropped to her knees. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Her voice broke into sobs. I should have stopped them. I should have done something. I should have called someone. I should have fought back. I should have... Sophia, I was so weak. She choked out, pressing her hands to her face. I let them hurt you. I let them lock you in that garage. I let them starve you. I heard you crying at night, and I didn't do anything. I didn't protect you. I'm your daughter, and I didn't protect you. My heart shattered. I stepped down from the witness stand and knelt in front of her. I took her hands in mine, her small, cold, trembling hands, and I held them tight. Sophia, look at me. She shook her head, sobbing. Sweetheart, look at me. Slowly, she lifted her eyes. They were red and swollen, full of guilt and pain. This is not your fault, I said firmly. Do you hear me? None of this is your fault. But you were a victim too. Kyle hurt you. He threatened you. He controlled you. You were trying to survive just like I was. You did the best you could. I should have been stronger. You were strong, I said, my voice breaking. You survived him, Sophia. You stayed alive. That's all I ever wanted. That's all that matters. She collapsed into my arms, sobbing against my chest, and I held her the way I used to when she was little, when she'd wake up from a nightmare and I'd carry her back to bed, when she'd fall off her bike and I'd clean her scraped knees, when the world felt too big and too scary and all she needed was her dad. I've got you, I whispered. I've got you, sweetheart. It's over now. We're safe. I looked up and saw Martin standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching us. His face was calm, but his eyes were wet. He wiped them quickly with the back of his hand and looked away. Judge Hawkins stood up from her bench. She looked at us for a long moment, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't expected: compassion, maybe even tears. Mr. Donovan, she said gently, you and your family are free to go. Take care of each other. I nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. She nodded back, then quietly left the courtroom through the side door. I helped Sophia to her feet. She clung to my arm, her face buried in my shoulder. Martin walked over and put a hand on my back. Let's go home, he said quietly. We walked down the center aisle together, Sophia on one side, Martin on the other, past the empty benches, past the witness stand, past the judge's bench, where I'd told the truth for the first time in 3 years. We pushed through the heavy wooden doors and stepped out into the afternoon light. The sun was warm on my face. The sky was clear. The streets of downtown Portland stretched out in front of us, busy and loud and alive. Sophia was still holding my arm. Martin was walking beside me, steady and strong. I stopped on the courthouse steps and closed my eyes. Felt the sun. Felt the breeze. Felt the weight lift off my chest for the first time in 1,095 days. And then I whispered so quietly that maybe only I could hear it, we're free. 3 months later, the final sentencing came down. I didn't go to the courthouse. I couldn't. The thought of sitting in that room again, breathing that air, seeing those faces, it was too much. So I stayed in my apartment in Seattle, a small one-bedroom place in Capitol Hill that Martin had helped me rent, and I waited for the call. It came at 2:30 in the afternoon. Marcus. Martin's voice was steady, calm. It's done. I sat down on the edge of the couch, phone pressed to my ear. Tell me. Kyle got 25 years. No parole eligibility for 15. I closed my eyes. Victoria got 15 years. Brandon got 8. and Dr. Foster got 12, plus his medical license has been permanently revoked. He'll never practice again. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. There was a weight in my chest, heavy and cold and complicated. "Marcus, you still there?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I'm here." "It's over, brother. They're going away for a long time." "Yeah." There was a pause. Then Martin said softer, "You okay?" I stared at the floor, at the worn carpet, at my hands still too thin, still marked with scars. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel something. Relief, maybe. Satisfaction. But I just feel empty." "That's normal," Martin said. "Justice doesn't fix what they took from you. It just makes sure they can't take any more." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, Martin, for everything." "Anytime, brother. I'll call you tomorrow." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, feeling everything and nothing at the same time. The next few weeks were a blur. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Rebecca Tan, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a quiet voice. She specialized in trauma and abuse in people like me, who'd been broken and were trying to figure out how to put themselves back together. "You don't have to be okay right away," she told me during our first session. "Healing isn't linear. Some days will be good. Some days will be terrible. That's normal." I nodded. I didn't believe her, but I nodded. I also started physical therapy. My body had been starved for so long that just walking up a flight of stairs left me winded. A trainer named Greg, a former Marine with a buzz cut and a no-nonsense attitude, put me on a meal plan and a workout routine. Nothing intense, just enough to rebuild muscle to gain weight to feel like a human being again. "You're stronger than you think, Marcus," he said one day, watching me struggle through a set of resistance bands. "You survived 3 years in hell. A few push-ups aren't going to kill you." I laughed. It was the first time I'd laughed in months. And then there was Sophia. 2 weeks after the sentencing, she called me. "Dad, I filed for divorce." I sat up straighter. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said, and I could hear the relief in her voice. Better than fine, actually. "I'm going back to my maiden name, Sophia Donovan. I want to be your daughter again, not his wife." My throat tightened. "You never stopped being my daughter's sweetheart." "I know," she said softly, "but it feels good to have the name back." A week later, she told me she was moving to Seattle. "I can't stay in Portland," she said. "Too many memories, too many ghosts. I need a fresh start. And I want to be close to you." I helped her find an apartment 3 blocks from mine. Helped her pack, helped her carry boxes up 2 flights of stairs, even though Greg yelled at me later for overdoing it. And on a Friday evening in late September, she knocked on my door. "Hey, Dad." She was holding 2 grocery bags. "I thought maybe I could cook us dinner tonight, if you're up for it." I smiled. "I'm up for it." She stepped inside and started unpacking the bags. Ribs, BBQ sauce, coleslaw, cornbread mix. "I'm making Mom's recipe," she said quietly, not looking at me. "The one she used to make on Sundays." I felt my eyes sting. "She'd love that," I said. Sophia nodded, blinking fast. Then she turned on the oven and got to work. We didn't talk much while she cooked, just the quiet sounds of her moving around the kitchen, the smell of spices and smoke filling the small apartment. It felt normal, like something we used to do a lifetime ago. When the food was ready, she set 2 plates on the small table by the window. We sat down across from each other, And for a moment, we just looked at the food. At each other. To Mom, Sophia said, raising her glass of water. To Mom, I echoed. We ate. And somewhere between the first bite and the last, we started talking. Really talking. About Elizabeth. About the years we lost. About the guilt we both carried. About the hope we were trying to hold on to. And then somehow we were crying. And then we were laughing. And then we were crying again, because we were still here, still breathing, still together. And that, I realized, was enough. 1 year later, I sold the house in Portland, the $7 million mansion I'd designed with my own hands, the place where I'd raised Sophia, where Elizabeth and I had celebrated 30 anniversaries, where I'd once felt safe. It had to go. I couldn't step foot in it without seeing Kyle's face, without hearing Victoria's voice, without smelling the oil and rust of that garage. So I let it go. The sale closed in March. I used part of the money to buy a small 2-bedroom condo in Seattle near Green Lake. The rest, $2 million, I donated to an organization called Safe Haven, a nonprofit that helped survivors of elder abuse and domestic violence. Are you sure about this? The director, a woman named Karen, had asked when I handed her the check. This is a life-changing amount of money. I'm sure, I said. Use it to help people who can't help themselves. People like I used to be. She'd hugged me, tears in her eyes. We will, I promise. A month later, I became a volunteer. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I went to Safe Haven's community center in Capitol Hill. I sat in small rooms with men in their 60s, 70s, 80s, who had been beaten, starved, manipulated, and discarded by the people who were supposed to love them. I listened to their stories. I told them mine. And slowly we helped each other remember that we were still worth something. One man, Harold, was 73. His son had stolen his pension and locked him in a basement for 2 years. I thought I deserved it, Harold told me one afternoon, his voice shaking. I thought I was a burden. I reached across the table and put my hand on his. You didn't deserve it, Harold. None of us did. He cried, and I cried with him. Because I understood. Martin came to visit every other weekend. We'd spent 35 years apart, estranged over something so stupid I couldn't even remember what it was anymore. But now we were making up for lost time. We'd go fishing on Lake Washington, sitting side by side in his old boat lines, cast saying very little. Sometimes we'd talk about the past, about Mom and Dad, about the house we grew up in, about the years we'd wasted. But most of the time, we just sat in comfortable silence the way brothers do. Afterward, we'd grab coffee at a diner near the marina. Black coffee for him, cream and sugar for me, same as it had been when we were kids. You doing okay? Martin asked one Saturday, stirring his coffee. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I said. I think I am. He nodded. Good. You've earned it. I smiled. So have you. He raised his mug. To second chances. I clinked mine against his. To second chances. Sophia was healing too. Slowly but steadily. She'd joined a support group for survivors of domestic abuse, women who'd been where she'd been, who understood the fear, the shame, the guilt. She went every Wednesday night, and every Thursday morning she'd call me and tell me how it went. I'm starting to feel like myself again, she told me one day. Like the person I was before Kyle, before all of it. I'm proud of you, sweetheart, I said. Thanks, Dad. And then one Saturday in late October, she invited me to a community event at her support group. A potluck, a chance for survivors and their families to meet, to talk, to connect. I went. The room was full of people, men, women, kids, all of them carrying their own stories, their own scars. I stood near the snack table holding a paper plate, watching Sophia across the room. She was talking to a man. He was younger than her, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and kind eyes. He was holding a cup of coffee and smiling at something she'd said. And Sophia, my Sophia, was smiling back. Not a forced smile, not a polite smile, a real one. I watched as he said something that made her laugh. Watched as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear the way she used to do when she was nervous but happy. Watched as he leaned in slightly, listening to her with the kind of attention that said, "I see you. I hear you. You matter." And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter look at someone without fear. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Martin had appeared beside me holding a plate of cookies. "She's doing good," he said quietly. "Yeah," I said, my voice thick. "She is." We stood there for a while watching her live, watching her heal. And then I thought of Elizabeth. I thought of the last conversation we'd had 2 weeks before she died. She'd been lying in her hospital bed, weak and tired, but she'd taken my hand and squeezed it. "Anna Marcus," she'd said, her voice barely a whisper. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll take care of Sophia, and promise me you'll let her take care of you, because love, real love, that's what heals us. Not time, not medicine, love." I'd promised her, and I'd kept that promise. I looked at Sophia now, still smiling, still talking to that kind-eyed man, and I felt something warm and light settle in my chest. Elizabeth had been right. Love was what healed us. 2 years later, Sophia married David Thompson. David was a software engineer, 42 years old, a widower who'd lost his wife to cancer 3 years earlier. He had a 6-year-old daughter named Emma, dark curls and bright eyes, who carried her mother's smile. I met David for the first time on a Sunday afternoon in June. Sophia had invited me to brunch at a cafe near Green Lake, and when I arrived, he was already there, sitting across from her, holding her hand. "Dad," Sophia said, standing up and smiling nervously. "This is David." David stood and extended his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His eyes were steady kind. "Mr. Donovan," he said, "it's an honor to meet you." "Marcus," I corrected. Please." He nodded. "Marcus." We sat down, and for the first hour we talked about the usual things: work, Seattle, the Mariners. But eventually, Sophia excused herself to the restroom, and David turned to me, his expression serious. "Marcus, I need to say something." I set down my coffee cup. "Go ahead." He took a breath. "I know what Sophia's been through. She's told me everything. About Kyle, about the abuse, about the years she spent trying to survive." His voice was steady, but I could see the emotion in his eyes. "I want you to know that I will never, ever hurt her. I will love her every single day. I will make her feel safe. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure she never has to be afraid again." My throat tightened. "I believe you," I said quietly. "And I promise you this," David continued. "If I ever fail her, if I ever make her feel less than cherished, you have my permission to come after me." I smiled, blinking back tears. "I'll hold you to that." He smiled back. "I hope you do." When Sophia returned, she looked between the two of us, sensing something had shifted. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Everything's perfect," I said, and it was. The wedding was small, just 20 people gathered on the shore of Lake Washington on a warm Saturday in September. White chairs arranged in neat rows on the grass. A simple wooden arch draped in wildflowers. The mountains in the distance soft and hazy under the afternoon sun. Martin stood beside me in the front row, wearing a gray suit that matched mine. He looked good. Strong, older, but still the brother I'd rediscovered after 35 years of silence. You ready for this? He asked, his voice low. I nodded. Yeah, I think I am. The music started, a soft acoustic guitar played by one of David's friends. Everyone stood. And then I saw her. Sophia. She was standing at the end of the aisle wearing a simple white dress, her hair pinned back with small flowers. She wasn't holding a bouquet. She didn't need one. She was radiant. I walked over to her, my heart pounding in my chest. Hi, Dad. She whispered, her eyes shining with tears. Hi, sweetheart. She took my arm and together we walked down the aisle, step by step, past the rows of chairs, past Martin, who was wiping his eyes, past David's daughter Emma, who was clutching a basket of flower petals and grinning. And then we reached David. He was standing under the arch hands clasped in front of him, his face full of emotion. When he saw Sophia, his eyes filled with tears. I stopped and turned to my daughter. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, Dad. I kissed her forehead, then placed her hand in David's. Take care of her, I said quietly. David nodded, his voice thick. I will. I promise. I stepped back and took my seat beside Martin. The officiant began to speak, but I barely heard the words. I just watched my daughter, my beautiful, strong, resilient daughter, smiling up at the man who would become her husband. And for the first time in years, I saw her without fear, without hesitation, without the shadow of Kyle hanging over her. She was free. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows, simple, heartfelt promises to love and support each other. David slipped a ring onto her finger, his hands shaking slightly. Sophia did the same, her smile wide and genuine. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant said. You may kiss the bride. David leaned in and kissed her soft and gentle, and everyone clapped. The reception was held right there on the grass. Tables with white linens, string lights hung between the trees, a playlist of soft jazz playing from a portable speaker. People ate, drank, laughed. It was simple, joyful, perfect. At one point, I saw Emma, David's daughter, run up to Sophia. She tugged on Sophia's dress, and Sophia knelt down. What is it, sweetie? Sophia asked. Emma looked up at her with those big, bright eyes. Can I call you Mama now? Sophia's face crumpled. She pulled Emma into her arms and held her tight. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you can. I turned away, wiping my eyes. Later, as the sun began to set, Martin and I walked down to the edge of the lake. We sat on a wooden bench, side by side, watching the sky turn orange and pink. She's happy, Martin said quietly. Yeah, I said. She really is. We sat in silence for a while, the water lapping softly against the shore. Then Martin turned to me. Marcus, I want you to know something. I looked at him. I'm always going to be here, he said. Whenever you need me, for anything, I'm not going anywhere. I felt a lump rise in my throat. I know, I said. And I'm grateful. More than you'll ever know. He put a hand on my shoulder. We're brothers. That's what we do. I nodded. We sat there until the sun disappeared behind the mountains, and the first stars began to appear. 3 years later, Martin published a book. It was called The Twin Who Came Back, a story of survival, brotherhood, and justice. On the cover was a black and white photo of the two of us standing side by side, our faces identical, our expressions solemn. Martin had spent 2 years writing it. He'd interviewed me dozens of times, recorded hours of audio sifted through police reports and court transcripts and video footage. He'd written about my life with Elizabeth, about the garage, about the 1,095 days I spent trapped in my own home. He'd written about Kyle, Victoria, Brandon, Dr. Foster. He'd written about Sophia's pain, her survival, her redemption. But more than that, he'd written about elder abuse, about the millions of older adults in America who suffer in silence, beaten, starved, manipulated, robbed by the very people who are supposed to care for them. He'd written about how the system fails them, how neighbors look the other way, how families pretend not to notice. And he'd written about what it means to show up, to answer the call, to be the person who says, "I see you, I believe you, I'm here." The book came out in April. Within 2 weeks, it hit the New York Times bestseller list. Within a month, it was #1. I didn't read it at first. I couldn't. The thought of reliving those years, even on the page, was too much. But Sophia did. She called me one night, her voice thick with tears. "Dad, you need to read this." "I don't know if I can, sweetheart." "You can," she said gently. "And you should. Because Martin didn't just write about what happened to you. He wrote about what you survived, about how strong you are, about how much you matter." So I read it. And she was right. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was also beautiful, because Martin had taken my pain and turned it into something that mattered, something that could help people. A few weeks after the book came out, Martin called me. "I'm Marcus. I've been invited to do an interview on CNN national television. They want to talk about the book, about elder abuse, about what people can do to help." "That's incredible, Martin." "I want you to be okay with this," he said. "I'm going to be talking about you, about us, about everything." "I'm more than okay with it," I said. "I'm proud of you." There was a pause, then quietly, "Thanks, brother." The interview aired on a Tuesday evening. Sophia came over to watch it with me. We sat on my couch, the TV on 2 mugs of tea on the coffee table. The CNN logo appeared on the screen, followed by the host, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a kind smile. "Tonight," she said, "we're joined by Martin Donovan, retired FBI agent and author of the best-selling book, The Twin Who Came Back. Martin, thank you for being here." "Thank you for having me," Martin said. He looked calm, composed, but I could see the emotion in his eyes. "Your book tells the story of your twin brother Marcus, who was imprisoned and abused by his own family for 3 years. Can you tell us how this happened?" Martin nodded. "Marcus's wife died. He was grieving, vulnerable. His daughter and her husband moved in supposedly to help him. But over time they took control. They isolated him. They moved him into the garage and locked him in. They starved him, beat him, threatened him. And they were planning to end his life and steal his assets." The host's face was grave. "And you switched places with him?" "Yes. Marcus called me after 35 years of estrangement. He was desperate. I knew that if he tried to escape on his own, they'd discredit him, claim he was senile or delusional. So I took his place. I let them think I was Marcus, and I gathered evidence." "That's extraordinary." Martin shook his head. "It's what anyone should do. But the truth is, most people don't. Elder abuse is one of the most underreported crimes in America. Millions of older adults are suffering right now, and no one is listening." The host leaned forward. "What can people do?" Martin looked directly into the camera, and for a moment it felt like he was looking at me. "Pay attention," he said. "If you have an elderly neighbor, a parent, a grandparent, check on them. Ask them how they're doing. Look for signs of abuse, bruises, weight loss, fear, isolation. And if something feels wrong, speak up. Call Adult Protective Services. Call the police. Don't assume someone else will do it." He paused, his voice growing stronger. "Be someone's Martin. One phone call can save a life." I felt tears streaming down my face. Sophia reached over and took my hand. "He's amazing, Dad," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, my voice breaking. "He really is." The interview continued for another 10 minutes, but I barely heard it. I just kept thinking about what Martin had said. Be someone's Martin. One phone call can save a life. After the interview ended, my phone rang. It was Martin. "Did you watch?" he asked. I did. "And?" "You were perfect, Martin. You're going to help so many people." There was a long pause, then softly, "I hope so, brother. I really hope so." Later that night, Sophia hugged me goodbye at the door. "I'm proud of both of you," she said. "You survived. Uncle Martin fought for you, and now the whole world knows your story." "Maybe that's the point," I said. "Maybe the pain wasn't wasted." She smiled. It wasn't. 4 years after the trial, I was 72 years old, and for the first time in decades, I was at peace. I lived in a small house near Green Lake in Seattle, the kind of place I used to dream about when I was locked in that garage. 2 bedrooms, a front porch, a little garden full of roses that bloomed every spring. The walls were painted soft yellow. Sunlight poured through the windows every morning. It wasn't the $7 million mansion I'd designed all those years ago, but it was mine, and it was enough. The best part, I wasn't alone. Sophia visited every week, and 8 months ago, she'd given me the greatest gift I could have asked for. A granddaughter, Ellie. Born when Sophia was 39 years old, what the doctors called a miracle baby. Sophia had cried when she found out she was pregnant. She'd thought it was too late, that her body had been through too much. But life, it turned out, had other plans. Ellie had dark hair like her mother and bright, curious eyes like Elizabeth. She was 8 months old now, babbling and giggling and grabbing at everything she could reach. Every Saturday afternoon, Sophia brought her over. I'd sit in my old wooden rocking chair on the porch, Ellie bundled in a soft blanket on my lap, and I'd tell her stories. Not the hard stories. Not yet. I told her about her grandmother Elizabeth, about the houses I used to design, about the time I built a treehouse for Sophia when she was 6, about the mountains and the rivers and the way the world looked when you paid attention. Ellie didn't understand the words yet, but she listened. She looked up at me with those big eyes and smiled, and I knew somehow that she felt safe. That was all I wanted, for her to feel safe. Martin still came to visit every other weekend. We'd grab coffee, drive out to Lake Washington, and sit in his boat with our fishing lines in the water. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. It didn't matter. We were brothers again. That was enough. And then there was Emma, David's daughter from his first marriage. She was 9 now, bright and funny and full of energy. She'd started calling me Grandpa Marcus a year ago, and every time she did, my heart swelled. She'd run up to me at family dinners, throw her arms around my waist and say, "Grandpa, guess what I learned in school today?" And I'd listen, every single time, because I knew what it was like to be invisible, to be forgotten. And I would never ever let that happen to her. Life wasn't perfect. Some nights I still had nightmares. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding back in that garage with the smell of oil and rust and fear. I'd see Kyle's face, hear Victoria's voice, feel the cold concrete under my back, but then I'd open my eyes. I'd see the soft glow of the streetlight through my bedroom window. I'd hear the rain tapping gently on the roof. I'd feel the warmth of my blanket, and I'd remember I was free. One Thursday afternoon in late October, my phone rang. It was Karen from Safe Haven. "Marcus, I'm sorry to bother you," she said, her voice tight with worry. "But we just got a call. There's an elderly man, 76 years old, living with his nephew in Ballard. The neighbor reported suspected abuse. He's afraid to leave, afraid to ask for help. I know it's a lot to ask, but would you be willing to talk to him? I didn't hesitate. Give me the address, and I said, I'm on my way. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and headed out the door. The drive took 20 minutes. The streets were lined with trees, their leaves turning gold and orange and red, falling in slow spirals to the ground. The air smelled like rain and earth and autumn. I thought about the man I was going to meet, about the fear he must be feeling, the shame, the hopelessness. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it. But I also knew something else. He wasn't alone. I pulled up to the address Karen had given me, a small run-down house with peeling paint and a sagging porch. I took a deep breath, got out of the car, and walked up to the front door. And as I knocked, I thought about everything I'd been through. The garage, the trial, the years of healing, Sophia's wedding, Ellie's birth, Martin's book, all of it. And I realized something. My pain hadn't been wasted. It had led me here, to this moment, to this man who needed someone to see him, to believe him, to tell him that there was a way out. I was that person now. I was someone's Martin. The door opened. An older man stood there, thin and tired, with bruises on his arms and fear in his eyes. "Hi," I said gently. "My name is Marcus. I'm here to help." Later, as I drove home through the falling leaves, the sky turning soft shades of pink and gray, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, I was helping, I was making sure that no one else had to suffer the way I had. And that I realized was the whole point. I smiled as I turned onto my street, the autumn leaves swirling around my car. I'd found my reason. If you're reading this and you're scared, and you think no one will believe you, I want you to know something: you are not alone. There are people ready to help you. I am proof. Looking back at everything I've been through, I want to share something with you. Family betrayal is one of the deepest wounds a person can carry. When the people who should protect you become the ones who hurt you, it shatters something inside. I learned that blood doesn't always mean loyalty, and silence can be deadlier than violence. The pain of family betrayal taught me that trust must be earned, not assumed, even with those who share your name. My story is also one of countless grandpa stories, older men and women who suffer behind closed doors, invisible to the world. We're taught to respect family, to keep problems private, but that silence almost killed me. These grandpa stories need to be heard, because behind every closed door could be someone like me counting the days, hoping for rescue. If you're reading this, and you see the warning signs, family betrayal, isolation bruises fear in someone's eyes, please don't be like the neighbors who look the other way. Be like Martin. Speak up. Make the call. One act of courage can save a life, and if you're the one suffering right now, hear me. You are not too old to matter. You are not a burden. You deserve safety, dignity, and love. God did not bring you this far to abandon you in the dark. There is a way out. There are people ready to help. These grandpa stories, these stories of survival, they matter. Because every time someone speaks up, another person finds the strength to do the same. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't assume someone else will help. Don't let shame keep you silent. Be someone's Martin. Be the voice. Be the light. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below. And tell me, what would you do if you found yourself in Marcus's situation, or if you suspected someone you loved was being hurt? Your perspective matters to me. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing so you don't miss what comes next. A gentle note: while inspired by real issues surrounding elder abuse and domestic violence, Certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your cup of tea, feel free to explore other videos that resonate more with you.